Final Boy Status is a podcast about scary movies and the stuff that happens in them. The entire horror genre is generally frightening and disturbing, so if you're a kid, be sure to ask your parents if it's okay for you to listen. Or don't. You'd probably be cooler if you didn't ask for their permission. But then again, I won't tell you how to live your life. Also, we will be discussing spoilers during this podcast, so don't say we didn't warn you.
All right, everybody. This is Adam with Final Boy Status. I'm going to be your host for the day. We're joined with the usuals. Lanson is here, and Luke is here.
That's true.
How are you guys doing?
After watching this movie, what a question.
Yeah, little bit disturbed. It was definitely a silent ride up here, I feel like.
A little bit of small talk, but
Yeah.
that just made it more awkward. What can I say?
A little bit of confusion over Ari Aster's cultural history.
Yeah, right?
We'll get into that. Let's not spoil things, all right?
Oh, you're right. Yeah, we got to save that steamy content.
Yeah,
Save that
that's
surprise.
what the listeners are here for. And we're also, we have the pleasure of being in the presence of my brother Josh Bone, who is a guest here today. How are you doing, Josh?
You know, I'm fantastic. It's an honor. It's an honor to be here, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Right on.
That's not what you said when you got here.
Well, you know, I don't know.
You jumped out of your car and you're like, you're lucky I have nothing to do today.
Yeah, but you know,
You're lucky I have this stupid wife and kid to ignore.
Luke, we want our guests to come back. Stop it.
I'm just really confused. Is this a negative or positive experience?
Stop repeating
you know, I
this.
say certain things but mean other things. So, you know, I don't know.
Hey, we got him here, and we're only paying $500,000, so let's
Yay.
Gotta be grateful. Gotta be grateful.
You're
for
lucky
it.
I did it for $500,000.
just...
Oh,
we got what we got. So,
Got the family discount.
if you predicted by the way we're talking about this movie, it was a rough ride. We are going to be talking about the movie Hereditary.
Ooh.
And if you're not familiar with the show, it's the show where we talk about if we could survive horror movies, just like you talk about with your friends, like you're watching a scary movie and you're like, man, that character, they should have not split up, or they should have not made that stupid decision. We're here to talk about that and tell you how 3, and in this case 4, super average Joes, how we could survive your favorite scary movies.
So average.
Just
so
the
average.
averagest of
Yeah.
average Joes. If you've never seen the movie and you're just listening to it to have fun, which is fine, because I guess we haven't really talked about really what the premise of the movie is. It's a family. They went through some tragic, I guess the mom's mom died, I guess.
Yeah, the grandmother.
We've already spoiled it, so I guess I don't have to be too
Yeah,
tiptoeing.
he really tiptoed around the tulips.
But yeah, it's a family who's already going through some tragedy, some supernatural stuff happens, more tragedy ensues, and a super shocking and unexpected death from the daughter, and then at the end there's a evil demon cult and an evil demon, and in the end, I guess evil prevails. So that's a quick summary of the movie. If you've never seen it, you don't care about spoilers, there's the gist of it. Basically, the point of this podcast, I mean, I expected that we'd spend most of the time just gushing about this film because it is very good. And to what Josh said, a lot of talking about surviving it is going to be a little interesting. But let's get into it and see what happens. I don't know. We start usually by talking about the antagonist of the movie. In the slasher movies, it's the killer, it's the deranged lunatic, or in this case, it's going to be the cult and the demon thing and kind of how they're interacting with the family. We usually talk about their motives, their abilities, like to make it a little more with the slasher genre, the weapons they use, the decisions they make, and in this case, maybe the power, the influence they have, and how smart they were, if they could have been smarter, if some of the decisions they made could have been avoided. What do we think about this cult? Was there room for error, or were they just on it? I don't know.
room for error, definitely. Did they make missteps? Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen the movie, so correct me if there is an explanation for this. But the cult is straight up, they lit a bonfire and there's like people like right outside the house and the little girl goes and like sees them. And then the mom's there, right? Do you remember that?
Okay.
They're just out in the open?
That does happen in the movie, but I did
There's
not
one
perceive...
lady.
Yeah,
One lady?
I did not perceive that as being a thing that was happening in real life as much as that was a thing.
You don't think they were actually there? Just
Yeah,
in the
I thought
little
that
girl's
was
head?
I thought that was just in the little girl's head.
I think they were actually there. I mean,
think
in my
they're actually
opinion,
there.
because I think throughout the movie, these members of the cult that you see at the end,
They just come through the trees and
like
stuff.
they're kind of peppered throughout the film. Like, that's
I see what you're
person,
saying.
that person from there, which kind of shows that they have this sort of, they're always watching this family kind of from afar.
Yeah.
And there's that scene where like you see Peter like kind of exhale smoke out the window when he's like smoking that bong or whatever, and then you see like the steam from someone's breath like outside the window. Like these people are watching this family the entire time. So I think every time you see somebody from the cult, I want to say that it's real, but that's just kind of my viewing of it.
And
That does bring credence to your point, though. Of
Yeah.
How was the mom not like, who's setting fires on our property? Like, who are these losers? Like,
Exactly.
when it comes to margins for error, I think that is a big one where if we're going along with the rabbit hole that Josh presented of it actually happening, which I actually agree with you, I think the cult is real, the people are substantial and tangible, then if they're just right off screen, someone has to be like, dude, what the fetch? You're outside this window, or you're setting fires to my fetching lawn. Like
the cop at the friggin' scene of the accident for Charlie's death, looking at their symbol carved into the pole, like,
He's like,
oh,
"This
well,
wasn't
this
here."
warrants investigation.
yeah, there's a lot of things where they're pulling the strings, yes, but there's other people in this world, like you said, maybe a cop or somebody who's like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't know.
The hero ends up being Officer Dewey, finding the symbol on the pole and going, hold up, this is from a cult. Let's go ask some questions. Oh, and their grandma was the leader. Interesting.
Yeah. No, and I mean, another thing as well that I would like to bring up is in the box, Annie's
What's in the
mom's
box?
Yeah, like through her mom's stuff. If she had actually looked, it would have been like, this is a cult book and a bunch of pictures of all these cult members. And this explains their like motive and what they want to do and what they're about and who Payman is, so
Oh yeah, and even when she gets to Joan's house, she sees the
rug.
sees the rug and she's like, that looks just like the one my mom made for me, and then forgets about it until it's relevant.
Yeah.
And if she had kept that in her mind like through the whole movie, she could have made that connection a little faster, but luckily she forgot until,
I
she
mean,
needed
to
put the
be
clues.
fair, there was other things she was focused on.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Sure.
she didn't
She
have
was
time
in
to
a
see all these
susceptible
little
time.
details after losing 2 family members in the space of, like, what, a month or 2 months? The passage of time isn't super clear in this movie. But
And honestly, like, the amazing thing is, and ultimately this is all a compliment to the film, that if we really sit and think, we can find these like little gaps in the logic of the movie. But ultimately, all 4 of us will watch this movie again and ignore everything we're saying right now.
Yeah.
So in the end,
true.
it's just a compliment to the movie that all of this stuff kind of exists, but we just don't care when we watch the movie.
And it's because it's what the podcast is that we're talking about.
Sure. Yeah.
Normally,
This is
we'd
this is
give it
the
a
most
pass.
this is the nitpicky podcast, so it's gonna get nitpicky.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you do talk about because I haven't thought about this till we're having this conversation now, there are rooms for error. There are things going on that could have been tightened up. They could have, I don't know, done other things. I guess they could have, or there could have, not that they could have done better, but there could have been ways they would be found out before they were found out. But I think just the way the movie explains, like Josh brought up, that Fetch, she's going through this grief, the whole family's, it's not like they're really paying that much attention to the details. So
Yeah.
it makes sense that they didn't find out, but I guess what we're saying is they could have seen these things and been like,
In the world of these characters, everything adds up and makes sense. But applying some of these to the real world and to us, there are moments in time where we're gonna stop things dead in its tracks because it's like, what? No, stop. So, like that's just sort of the trap we're going to fall into a little bit here.
And that's kind of transitioning a little bit, unless someone wants to go back to the killer, but to the victims, like how they handled it, the decisions they made in the spectrum of this cult and of this influence in their lives. Could they have made different choices amidst the grief, amidst all this, that would have had them prevail in the end? And it kind of goes to what we're saying, but just from their perspective.
From where they're at, their decisions do make sense to me. And the grief that she's feeling, it makes sense that she does the things that she does. But if I myself was in this movie, I would make drastically different decisions from everybody.
You're saying like elevated from the grief, or like just you as Luke right now if you were in this movie?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I mean, put in each. I mean, it changes with which character, like whose shoes I'm in.
It is true.
But for instance, in terms of like, if I was in Peter's shoes, Charlie wouldn't come to the party. And I get it, because like when you're a teenager, you really want to, in some ways, you want to keep you want to stay like low on your parents' radar. You don't want to cause any problems. But me as like 22-year-old Luke, I would definitely, in that situation, if she's like, well, can you take your sister? I'd be like, no. Because as a 22-year-old man, I understand that I'm allowed to set that boundary, and I'm allowed to say, not this time. I would, like, in a different situation, sure, not this time.
This kind of party that it is and what's going on.
Well, and he does lie about what kind of party it is.
Well, yeah. He doesn't tell that to her, but just in his mind. Like,
And he does have to borrow the car to get there. So, like,
that's true.
If he's not willing to play ball, they probably won't let him have the car.
Yeah, but at the same time, me as a 22-year-old man, I'm willing to risk that. I'm willing to be like, I'm willing to say like, this is a situation I do not want Charlie with me. Other situations, sure, but and again, this is just a thing of like, each of the characters, what they do makes total sense to me in the context of the movie. But if I'm inserting myself into it, I would feel differently. So now, if I'm Peter and I have to take my sister, okay. She needs a EpiPen. We're going to a school barbecue. There's going to be food there. I can't account for everything, and apparently she's dumb and she doesn't keep track of that herself. Which no offense to that character, because little kids are dumb, but clearly she's not keeping track of what's going into her mouth. Give me the EpiPen. So already like two decisions which would have really changed the outcome. If I am there, yes, I can make better decisions, but also the characters doing what they do makes perfect sense.
What happened in the movie was what was supposed to happen to those characters, but if you were in this movie, let's say, the cult might have done different things to control your life. Like maybe things would happen anyways, but in different ways. You know what I'm saying? In the context of who you are. Because this cult is obviously adapting to the situations of the family. So even though maybe you wouldn't have had the run-in with the telephone pole, there would have been a different way that the cult would be able to use you to, I guess, just in the context of who they are. So we would avoid the happenings of the movie, but would you be able to actually avoid the end result of this cult? I don't know.
No, and see, that's a good point. Somebody else talk.
Good transition.
No, it's just I've been ranting. Somebody else talk.
I mean, I agree with everything you guys said. It's like, no matter what this family does, they're screwed. The cult has their number. Like, whatever choice they make, they have no control over what happens in their lives in this movie. There's no saying whether or not we could make better decisions, because no matter what, it's going to have the same outcome.
Honestly, I don't know.
Josh gave up right out the gate. He's like,
world's over. Waving a white flag.
Well, looks like the world's ending. Time to smoke some pot.
Anyway.
Stare at this girl's butt as she sits. Okay, by the way, can I call something out?
Yes. After saying that, I would love to hear what it is.
Go ahead.
So, like the first school scene, Peter's in school not paying attention because he's staring at the butt of the girl in front of him while she's sitting at her desk. By the way, totally understand staring at a girl's butt. I really do.
Disclaimer for the audience.
No one
Luke is okay with that.
Hey, what I will say is, why when she's sitting down? Because in terms of like the shot we see from his perspective of her butt sitting in the chair, not an appealing butt in that moment.
Yeah.
That chair is doing her the opposite of a favor.
Yeah.
He could just be into sitting butts.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is a very subjective thing.
Some people are into squatting butts. You know, it's
true.
the butt genre is so massive and
diverse.
You know.
I'm so glad we're finally getting into this.
This is what the listeners
the
wanted.
podcast is really starting.
There's so many nuances to the butt genre.
I present this perspective.
Please.
He was sitting bored out of tears. A girl that he's attracted to is sitting in front of him. And he's like, hey, she's got a butt. Let me check that out. Anyway, back to class. That would be my perspective of why it looked.
I think you're absolutely correct.
It's so interesting because you're saying that, but you just handed me a note.
Luke, don't project.
What's going on, Josh?
There's a note for a reason.
In your handwriting. What the heck?
Josh doesn't want it broadcasted that he's.
I say certain things, but I don't mean.
He was so relieved that we could finally talk about the realm of girls sitting.
Let's not give these listeners the wrong idea of who I am.
Shoot.
I like girls standing too. Come on now.
We don't want to discriminate any of the standards out there.
I want to be totally clear. Girls, whether you're standing or sitting, either way, you're beautiful.
Yeah,
You are.
We go.
Wow. All right. Well.
I would like to bring something up.
All right, Lance.
Back to the storyline, if I could. Something that I found interesting as we were talking and as I watched it the second time. But yeah, I guess this is kind of going back to the cult itself, but it is connected to the victims, because that's their target. I think it's interesting. I wonder how much of the cult orchestrated things and how much they waited in the wings, just knowing the family dynamic and knowing each individual person and the way that they would interact with one another and the way that certain, knowing that they are vulnerable and losing their mother and the relationship that Annie had with the mother as well as Steve, the dad, and the kids, So anyway, I guess the point that I'm just trying to make is it's interesting to me that they definitely, in my mind, I think it's a mixture of them orchestrating things to be like, okay, we're going to put this chess piece here, but we're also going to see, like, what are you going to do and react, and we kind of have somewhat of an idea of where you're going to go with this to lead you to our end goal. So I think that's definitely a strength, and I think that's something that I would just like to throw out there as I've watched it a second time and as we've been talking about it.
Yeah. Well, and there was a moment in the movie when Lance and I were watching this where we were... Oh, no, well, we can just call out this specific moment.
Yeah.
He's, like, ridden his bike home from school. I think it's right after he had a panic attack while smoking pot under the bleachers. But he rides his bike home, and then he, like, walks in, and his mom's, like, watching him from the car. And just, like, the resentment. Like, the seething hatred she has for him, like, in that moment. I think Lanson brings up a fair point. Like, maybe all you need to do is, like, it's almost like a science experiment. Like, just toss in a couple chemicals and let things get unstable.
I think as we're kind of wrapping up a little bit, when we talk about actually surviving, I'd love to hear any perspective of if there is a way, if we were dropped into it, we could evade the cult. Is there a loophole? Is there a way that we could make final girl status on this,
Join the cult.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Oh,
She's blowing the roof off of this one.
That is the perspective I wanted to hear.
Josh is all about these different perspectives to really call us back to ourselves. Because first he's like, maybe he likes sitting butts. And now he's like, just join the cult. And he shifted the paradigm
This
on
is
us
the
both
outside
times.
perspective we want out of a guest. This is great.
This is
Put
why
on
the
a
guest comes.
t-shirt, sitting butts, join the cult. Team sitting butts.
Team sitting butt. So now you're willing to take the stance on sitting butts. Interesting.
But I like standing butts too. I mean, all butts are beautiful,
That's not as good as on a t-shirt though, Josh.
That's true, You got to appeal to the general market.
So yeah, Joel, I mean, that honestly, if you're like, I'm into this whole payment stuff, sign me up. Where's the waivers to sign? You might not get killed,
And they'll just find a different family to focus on.
I mean, final boy status, I think all of us could kind of get there because we're all pretty decent hosts for this payment guy.
And
I'd like to think so. I'd hope so.
Yeah.
So
Hell
apparently,
demon wants to,
So the demon has to
needs a
kill.
ride.
Yeah, the demon has to kill everybody else to get to you. So like, so I just by nature of who we are, we can get final boy status pretty easy, I would say. But final girl status, that is way more difficult. So
Yeah.
Oh, is it? I didn't mean to jump the gun. Did I
No,
jump the gun?
what I
already?
wanted to do is just, if you don't know what we're talking about as far as final boy, final girl status, your first time listening, we want to decide, because I guess the cliche of slasher movies, there's the final girl who survives at the end, she skin of her teeth, and then there's the final boy who makes it up until the end, then tragically dies. I guess it's the cliche, doesn't happen in every movie, as we've definitely found out in this podcast, but in case you didn't know what we were talking about, final boy status, you're dead, but final girl status is surviving the movie.
Yeah.
Just to give a little legend to what we're talking about.
So so I would not be the first death in this movie, so I would get final boy status. But in final girl status, I guess what it comes down to is you either join the cult or you sever all ties with your grandmother and like your family in general. Harder to say. You know what? I will go ahead and say I would not get final girl. I would not survive this movie. I would not get final girl status in this movie. I think everything you guys brought up is totally there. I think there's a layer of inevitability to everything. Yeah, that's my take. I'd get final boy status just because of who I am, being a
You'd bring the EpiPen. You wouldn't stick your head out. You'll make final boy status.
Yeah.
Other perspectives. How about you guys? You think you guys could survive?
No, I don't. Because
no,
I'm so... I don't know. I'm so trusting of people. If somebody came up to me and was like, "Hey, man," like, tried to be my friend and stuff, and kind
Totally
of
fell for
like groom me into, being a proper host for a King of Hell.
And
I
little
feel
do
like
you know
I'd be
that
going
this
along
podcast
with it.
is the first step.
It's us three.
That's
have that in
exactly
mind.
what's happening to me right now. All these people are trying to get me to be the next King of Hell, but like, it's it's hard to say because, like I said, I'm so trusting of people. So if like somebody came up to me and it was like said all this stuff, and I'd be going along with it, and by the time they opened up the King of Hell can of worms, I'd be like, okay, cool.
Let's
I
do
guess.
this. Weird.
And by then it'd probably be too late. They would have had their hooks in me. All the
Yeah.
cult members would be surrounding my house, looking at me
At that point, it's inevitable.
and whatnot. So yeah, I don't think I'd survive. I think it would it'd get me for sure.
I'm gonna shock the world. I'm gonna say yes
Oh my
and
gosh.
no.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Because the route I am going to take comes at a price. So, Payman, to be able to be reincarnated into the mortal world, needs a healthy male host, which I'm a male, but I'm going to say this. I'm going to find that box that Grandma hid away when I'm a little kid, like when I'm probably like a preteen, like maybe 11 or 12. I'm going to find it. I'm going to read the book, read a little bit of that, and then I'm going to start. I'm just binge eating, man. I am just going to run my body into the ground. I'm going to put high miles on it. I am brushing my teeth with a Snickers and rinsing with a Mountain Dew. I am just larding it up. Giving myself juvenile type 2 diabetes, heart disease.
Doing shots of Jack in the morning, ruining that liver.
I'm just
Doing all the drugs.
Yeah, I'm just going for it, So by the time that Grandmama's trying to groom me and telling her friends that I come out and I'm this sickly shell of a person, they're like, you know what? Maybe let's find somebody else. Let's leave her family alone. So I would survive that, but I would die from having unhealthy habits.
Of early onset child diabetes.
But I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees.
Hey, I appreciate that. What do you think, Adam?
How do I follow up on Lanson's? Honestly, I would die. I think honestly we've pretty well dissected this movie. Most of us aren't gonna make it out alive, unfortunately, but
Neither will you, listener.
don't think you will. Is there a perspective that you want to add? Is there another way out of this demon cult that we didn't touch on? Let us know.
The cult's watching you.
Is there another perspective we want to? Josh, did we say everything you wanted to say about butts? Is there a new perspective you wanted to?
If
tell
you've got a
someone
new
that?
perspective on butts, write into the podcast, please.
I do not want to be the one who has to sift through that. So Luke,
Don't send
you're
any
going through
pictures unless you want to. I mean,
That's just opening up
Yeah.
a can of worms that the internet is going to take full advantage of.
Butt pics and pics Equal opportunities here.
Oh no,
Link knows what he's asking. Luke,
that's on Luke.
Go ahead, give the email they can send that to, Adam. Do it, tell them. Do it, tell them right now. I want them to know. They have to know, come on.
Cool, well, let's jump into the plugs. What plugs do we have going on in our lives, guys?
You didn't even tell them you didn't even tell them the email.
You tell them the email. I don't know it off the top of my head.
It's underqualifiedidiots@gmail.com. Please send it's for like the media company as a whole, but if you address it to the host of Final Boy Status, we'll
know
get
what
you.
you're talking about.
Plugs. Okay.
Well, with that, while you're thinking of that, if you have movie requests, if you have idea, like, I don't know, we're very open to be accommodating to what you guys would like to see and would like to view.
We want to make content that you guys want to see. So if you have movies you want us to cover, if you have things that you want us to do, if you want us to make a video of us brushing our teeth in the morning, we'll probably do it. So like
brushing our teeth with a Snickers bar.
Put that on Patreon. You pay $10 a month. You get to see everyone brush their teeth in the morning.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and put that on our OnlyFans.
An extra 10. Brush your teeth before you go to bed.
This show is now like airing.
Yeah.
And the reception has been warm and kind. Some people have reached out and been very nice about it. So we'd like to say that if you're listening to the show and you're enjoying it, share it with some friends, drop reviews online. That'll help like rise us through the ranks as well. But yeah, we want to grow this little community we're building of final boys and final girls. So I would say just, share it with friends if you like it.
I think we talked about teasing the next movie.
Blair Witch.
So the next movie, it's going to be me, Luke, and our special guest, Sarah Tibbetts.
You mean Lanson. It will be you and Lanson.
I looked at Lance and was like, Luke, fetching L names. Me,
Okay,
Adam, Lanson, and Sarah are going to be tackling the Blair Witch Project.
I will be camping that weekend.
Camping in the
Good.
woods.
Yeah, I will be
In the
camping,
Maryland
making
woods.
a documentary.
Yep, good idea.
Experiencing the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, he will know definitively if he can survive in real time.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll know.
He's
I'll
a
know
field
things.
reporter.
Would also like to say real quick that you can follow me on Twitter. I am at Luke Haueter. That's LukeHaueter. I know our guest has a Twitter that he might like to plug.
Sure, I mean, if you feel so inclined, follow
funny guy.
Joshy the Bone. That's Joshy the Bone. But yeah, follow me on Twitter. I don't know. I tweet sometimes. Sure, sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're angry. I don't know.
I don't have a Twitter or really a place you can find me, but listen to me on this show, man.
Yeah.
That's a good place to hear what Adam has to say.
Yeah, I got this show. So if you want to hear more of my voice, keep listening.
Please do. Thanks, guys, for listening. Hope you have a great spooky season. Ooh, peace out. Lanson, Josh, Luke, Adam, out.
This has been an Underqualified Idiocracy media production, produced by Lanson Lappin, Adam Bone, and Luke Haueter. Theme music for the episode was written by Rachel Robison. You can hear more of Rachel's music at rachelrobinsonmusic.com. You can also find her on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching at Robel Racheson. Artwork for the YouTube version of this podcast was created by Trinity Rodriguez. You can follow her on Twitter by searching at InstrinBaby to see more of her work. This podcast was recorded in Underqualified Studios and edited by Luke Haueter, with special thanks to Mike Fuchs for providing audio assistance. The illustrious voice acting providing the intro and outro of this episode is Shane Alvey of the Paradox Files voice acting. You can explore more of his work on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching at The Paradox Files.
Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Final Boy Status. If you want to listen to the podcast version, which is longer than the version you find here on YouTube, you can find all the different streaming services we're available on at anchor.fm/finalboystatus. If you are insatiable and you just need that content, baby, you can go to patreon.com/Luke Haueter. That's LukeHaueter. We do extended and uncut versions of certain episodes, and they will be uploaded to the Patreon page if you just want to keep that Final Boy Status rolling. Finally, if you like what we're doing, click over here to watch even more Final Boy Status content. Click over here to subscribe.